All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2013. 14. And this says Before the First Cup with Jules and Zorie on UCY.TV. Good morning, Zorie.
Good morning. You're only a year off.
Only a year and probably about 8 hours of sleep off. Sure.
There you go. It's cold here.
Yeah, it's about 48 here.
Yeah, here. Same here. Didn't want to get out of bed. It was nice and warm.
No, I'm not feeling hot. I've been hoping that somebody would take the show all week, but not.
Yeah.
I have way too much personal stuff going on right now to be here.
Oh, no.
Well, I just have stuff that, it needs my attention. Like, I got to make sure I get all the insurance paid so they don't take my house.
Oh.
Things of that nature, but like big things that I need to deal with that honestly I could have done with about an hour's more sleep and then get my ass up showered and get out and pay all the shit that's got to be paid. But I'm here now.
All right. Well, glad you are.
I didn't even have anything open. I literally made it down here in like 2 seconds before the music stopped.
I'm surprised.
What do you mean?
Well, no, that was being sarcastic.
Oh, yeah, I like being here.
Sorry. Well, I have one here that it just blows my mind that with everything that's going on, the Ebola, the open borders, and all this, Homeland Security raids a Kansas City boutique over Royals panties. There's a lingerie shop owner in Kansas City says her store was raided by Homeland Security agents Monday morning over a few dozen pair of panties she made in honor of her hometown baseball team.
What?
The owner of Honey.
Why would you make underwear in honor of your hometown baseball team?
I don't know.
Unless you weren't a fluffer.
What it has on the panties is a crown symbol and then K connected to a C, and then it says the town. Well, the owner of Holmes Birdie's Panties shop in Crossroads said she designed the Lucky Royals boy shorts that were set to go on sale Tuesday. They came in and there were two guys. She told the Kansas City Star, I asked one of them what size he needed, and he showed me a badge and looked and took me outside. They told me they were from Homeland Security, and we were violating copyright laws. The panties printed in Kansas City by Lindquist Press read, Take the Crown with KC across the bottom, the news report said. Officers reportedly explained that by connecting the K and the C, she infringed on Major League Baseball copyrights. The panties were confiscated, and Mrs. Honig said she signed a statement saying she wouldn't use the logo again. Now, with everything that's going on, they're worried about a couple dozen panties.
Well, why are we sending Homeland Security?
Yeah, that's what I
That's got to be a mistake. I'm trying to remember. I believe that... Isn't it the post office? No. Who goes in there for copyright infringement? I think it is. Isn't it the Inspector General through the post office? No.
I would think.
That's fraud.
The Washington Times.
Well, Washington Times is the Mooney paper, isn't it?
Well, that's true, too. But I know. That's what struck me. I mean, why aren't they taking care of our borders? Why aren't they, involved in protecting the country instead of going out and confiscating panties for a copyright?
I just don't see how Homeland Security has any jurisdiction over copyrights. I would have to say that a copyright infringement, unless it was being shipped from outside the country where you'd have some trade laws going on that maybe would make it an international incident, would take place in court. They wouldn't send people to go raid.
I know. Well, you would think, but look we got...
Unless they were Chinese goods and... I don't know.
She had them printed up. Had them done here in a local company. So, I don't know. It just struck me weird, when I seen that. Like, why is Homeland Security involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's even on Yahoo News and on Kansas.com. I just want to understand how on earth
it affects our homeland.
Well, how on earth Homeland Security has any jurisdiction to be going after a small business for copyright infringement?
Right. I don't either. That's
WTF over. I'm going to try not to swear at 7 minutes into the show. Hold on. Small business owner is describing what happened when Homeland Security officers raided his printing shop. So it was a him. I assume that was
they raided the printing shop too?
in the Crossroads. Yeah, this is a story. It was 13 hours ago. It was just posted. Eric Lindquist owns Lindquist Press, small printing business near 20th in Baltimore. He said on Tuesday he finished a small order for Birdie's, a boutique lingerie shop. Hold on. Actually, there's even a clip here. I'll let this play. This is the local TV news station,
Okay.
It looks like. A lingerie shop just a few blocks away. When he delivered it around noon, a man approached him on the street. Lindquist said the man asked him if he printed the underwear with the Royals-related image on them. Lindquist said yes, but declined the man's request for a print job. Oh, so what? Were they trying to set him up to print like illegal images? Hold on. Come on, allow Adobe Flash. Oh, stop.
This is crazy. Then they raided her place and they approached the guy that printed them.
I think so. I can't get this freaking Adobe Flash image to stop, so I don't know if I can even play this, but we'll finish reading this. He declined. The underwear had the Royals connected KC on the back of the woman's and the front of the men's underwear. Lindquist said when he returned to his shop later in the day, the man was there and informed him that the underwear had been seized and Homeland Security had a warrant to search his shop.
What?
The image on the underwear was not licensed by Major League Baseball and therefore not considered counterfeit, which isn't that what I said? Like,
yeah.
But I mean, why is Homeland Security chasing down counterfeits even? I would think that would be like the Inspector General or the Attorney General, like for the state for fraud or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Lindquist said eventually 10 officers, all armed with weapons, showed up when he stepped outside. One of them, going for his gun, pushed me aside and said, "Take him." The second officer put me in cuffs, and they filed past me and stormed in. Lindquist said he had asked to see a warrant, and they waved a phone with a message on it saying they had a warrant from a judge. Lindquist said that he doesn't know if they thought he was a larger operation, printing thousands of items with the brand-drawn image on it, but he said that they relaxed after they realized he had only printed 50 pairs of underwear. Lindquist said I know, this is unreal. Lindquist said he was cuffed for about 10 minutes, and the entire ordeal lasted an hour and a half. He described it as terrifying and aggravating. Oh, my God. Yeah, I would not have sat quietly for an hour and a half. He told 41 Action News that he does not know what will happen from here or whether he'll face any fines or charges. Editors know.
Didn't it say that they hadn't licensed the logo?
Yeah, it did say they hadn't licensed it. Yep. And it says editors note an earlier version of the story stated Lindquist said that his printing screens were confiscated. The screens were not confiscated, but Lindquist was unable to show them during our interview. What?
This is upside down. Homeland Security. So those panties were somehow.
Well, they were panties and men's underwear. You said they were boy shorts, so I'm assuming that they're like boxers.
Mm-hmm. But,
men's and women's.
How does that affect our security in the nation?
Well, it doesn't. I don't see how Homeland Security has any jurisdiction over counterfeit products that maybe they're afraid of. Unless they were afraid that they were printing like Homeland Security logos.
Right. But how did they find out? You know, I mean, this is a small printing press, and they hadn't even delivered them yet. Well, they delivered the panties, but what? Somebody went to Homeland Security and said, "Hey, they're printing up these panties."
They're terrorists printing up counterfeit panties.
Right. That's the.
Absolutely
I'm curious
ridiculous.
if it was a snitch or how they came to know that this little town press, you know, printing press, printed off these, and they're worn under your clothes so you wouldn't even see them out in public. So how did they find out about it even?
Maybe one special person in the toilet would know.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, here. We're going to see if we can play this video again. I don't know if we're going to learn anything else. But business busted for selling Royals underwear. It's titled. What the frig? They said that you said that it was licensed? And maybe there was a typo in here because it doesn't make sense to me if it wasn't licensed, how they would even have any leg to stand on regardless whether or not. Hold on, that was bad.
Located south of Liberty, Missouri. We're located south of Liberty off highways 291 and 210. Check out our website, CarolinsCountryCousins.com.
Pumpkins. All right, here it goes.
Tonight, a small business owner describes the moment Homeland Security officers raided his shop. New at 6, our Jiao Jiao Shen spoke with the man. She joins us now live in Jiao Jiao. He said that they had their guns drawn and all this over underwear that he had printed.
That's right, Jadian. We first told you about this story last night. The underwear had a hand-drawn image of it supporting the Royals saying, "Take the crown." It's kind of hard to see it in this picture, isn't it? That's because it's in an evidence bag with Homeland Security. Now, the image was not authorized by the MLB, so Homeland Security raided the lingerie shop that sold the underwear yesterday, as well as the printer who made it. I talked with that printer today. Eric Lindquist here said it was a small job, about 4 dozen pairs of underwear. When he delivered it to Birdie's, the store in the Crossroads, a man approached him asking for an order. Lindquist said he was too busy. When he returned to his print shop, the man was there waiting for him, and eventually, Lindquist said, 10 agents showed up with their weapons at his front door.
One of them, going for his gun, pushed me aside, said, "Take him." The second officer put me in cuffs. They filed past and stormed in here.
Lindquist told me he asked to see a warrant. They said they had one, waved a cell phone with a message on it. They then confiscated the screens he used to print that image. He said he was in cuffs for about 10 minutes. The whole thing lasted about an hour and a half, and he said the experience was both terrifying and aggravating. We are in the studio tonight. Jiao Jiao Shen, 41 Action News.
All right, so it appears that it was not licensed. That's what she said.
They weren't licensed. I thought, the way I understood it was that the league hadn't.
Yeah, the league hadn't licensed that. They did not give permission for them to use the logo.
Okay.
That's what it was. But still, I don't get why Homeland Security is involved in counterfeiting.
These kind of things are a lot more important than our borders, or the Ebola outbreak.
Or the 70% of all the illegals that came into the country, no one knows where they are now.
Yeah, and 4 million or 43 million green cards that they're printing up already to hand out.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's so idiotic. And what a waste of money, I mean, how much did it cost for that little raid on panties, I wonder? 10 officers?
Yeah, 10 officers.
And with guns.
Do we actually, in that little podunk town, do we actually have 10 Homeland Security officers in that little podunk town?
I doubt it. They probably had to, fly them in.
Fly them all in on overnight supersonic flight?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. This is really stupid. It's beyond stupid and beyond a big waste of money. And the the officer was going for his gun as he pushed him to the wall.
Well, they all showed up with guns.
Yeah, that's true. But that's like showing up with guns to an Amish milk farmer.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
and then threaten them.
I don't know why the people aren't up in arms in that town or everywhere about how stupid and irrelevant stuff that they are going out and raiding when there's so many things going on what they should be addressing.
I know. You know what? I might need to write a story on this today. I did a story yesterday, if anybody is interested, because here's one of the things that we're being distracted from. So we have Homeland Security working on this. And in the meantime, and I'm sure that you guys probably talked about this one of the days I didn't hear, but the title, I did this on Nick's Animedia, Pentagon Ebola Strike Team to Fight Ebola on U.S. Soil. Did you hear about that?
What? No, I didn't.
Yeah. I didn't either. This is after the show yesterday. This news came out. Yeah, should I read my story? Actually,
yeah,
I did. I wrote a couple paragraphs. I went out to like defense.gov and whitehouse.gov and I got some statements and stuff. But as our endless police state continues to march forward, DOD involvement in controlling Ebola has now become the newest excuse for military intervention, this time on U.S. soil. The Ebola strike team would consist of a 30-person military team of 5 doctors, 20 nurses, and 5 quote-unquote compliance trainers who can deploy anywhere within the United States within 72 hours of requested assistance. Defense.gov states as of today, which was yesterday, the 30-man team has, quote, begun what is expected to be a week of specialized training at our Fort Sam Houston, Texas facility. According to the White House blog from October 21st, 2014, written by Colonel John DeGoes, titled Meet the U.S. military team that's poised to help respond to Ebola in the U.S. U.S. Northern Command, U.S. Northcom, will be responsible for providing support and response to additional cases of Ebola in the United States. Is that not crazy?
Aren't they a little late? I mean, there haven't been any more cases reported.
Oh, yes, there have been.
Oh, there have?
Hold on. This is where we ended the show yesterday, and I was like, what? It's been really quiet on the Ebola front. And right after the show, this and the next story, actually the next story hit me first, then this hit me next, were like a quick 1-2 shot and took me out. I spent, oh my God, I worked for hours and hours yesterday digging into crap. So, there were 2 stories then on Defense.gov. I guess it was a meeting that happened on Friday or Saturday where they were trying to decide what they were going to do. This new Ebola czar with no Ebola or even medical experience, but I guess he is well connected with Al Gore climate change and was told that he's the perfect guy to control, quote unquote, control the message. I don't even remember his name. Some stiff
Klein.
shirt. We can even look at him, but he was one of those people that when I looked at his face, I wanted to poke him in the eyes.
Me
you know,
too.
with that shit-eating smirk on his face that you know. I had a boss like that. That's not a good thing. I just want to read this little blurb. So you know how like every time we launch military operations, we always try to do it under the guise of humanitarian efforts?
Of course.
All right, so let's listen to the drivel that they posted on the White House blog yesterday. The Department of Defense, DOD, at the request of the Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, announced this weekend that U.S. Northern Command, U.S. Northcom, is providing a 30-person medical support team to quickly, effectively, and safely respond in the event of additional Ebola cases in the United States. U.S. Northcom is the military geographical command responsible for homeland defense, civil support, and security cooperation. It is prepared to support this request and be part of a multidisciplinary team that, if directed, will give our nation another layer of support, providing the highest quality and safest care in responding to any future Ebola cases in the homeland. Now, we spent a good part of the show reading a new executive order yesterday about the new task force formed with the Department of Defense as the chief. I don't remember what they called it. They were like the lead group in the task force for combating antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Department of Defense is in charge. Now, when we read that entire thing yesterday, it became painfully obvious by the time we got down to Section 6 that what that all had to do with was just setting a precedent to put some sort of pathogen, and I don't think it really mattered what it was, but it was anything that can be considered dangerous. I took things in the family of antibiotic-resistant bacteria to be things like MRSA that they could call a state of emergency that is very hard to get rid of, that, traditional methods, i.e. antibiotics, won't work anymore, obviously, because they were part of the problem. But what it brought together in that executive order was all the different medical establishments here and overseas. They'd even talked about the World Health Organization and trying to bring all that into alignment. They talked about using the big centralized database to get everyone's records in there. They talked about using the CDC as a connecting point, but the CDC is no longer in charge of this, which I found odd because you would think that the CDC was the one that should be in charge of all the stuff, right?
Well, it's just like the guy they put in charge. He had no medical experience.
Right. And now we got the military. It was one thing when they were running after Ebola in Africa, but now we're going to have military with boots on the ground, and that's what they literally say in this clip. We're going to listen to that. To combat it in this country?
Another way to get into your home or take away your rights.
Or quarantine. And there had been another executive order right before that had expanded the definitions of quarantine to include anything that was pneumonia-like, by the way.
Oh, great. The flu?
They said that the common cold was not included, but they did not mention the flu in there. So it probably was. Common cold was not included.
That which you have the same symptoms as Ebola.
Mm-hmm. And something else that they talked about is exchanging that information. There was, I had been doing some work. We're working on a couple new websites, actually. So I was up late working on look and feel for those sites, but I think I still have everything open here somewhere. Hold on one second from the show yesterday. I don't think I closed anything. It's just like 30 tabs this way. Yeah, here's both executive orders. You know what? Just in case. I have chat open a couple places too. I should probably close the windows. Just in case you missed it yesterday, I'm going to drop it in chat. These actually were on whitehouse.gov. My little birdie friend told me about these a couple days ago, dropped them to me a couple days ago, and I was like, oh, what does that mean? And then we read the whole thing, both of them, on air yesterday, and it really became painfully obvious what they were doing. But anyway, here they both are, whitehouse.gov. One is called, and these are almost from September, almost from July, but I missed them both. Combating Antibiotic-Resistant Bacteria, that was September 18th. And July 31st was a revised list of quarantinable communicable diseases. But yeah, what it pretty much outlined here, the co-chairs, the Task Force for Combating Antibiotic-Resistant Bacteria will be co-chaired by the Secretary of Defense, Agriculture, and Health and Human Services. And now Health and Human Services, as a part of this task force, Obama Task Force, has just called in the military, NORTHCOM, to be their assistant. Okay, so do you see how these parts are all connecting together very quickly?
Oh yeah, bringing us under military rule.
Absolutely, and I'm going to tell you what else. That list of quarantinable communicable diseases was pretty much just an addendum, and I never got to those other executive orders. I wanted to look at the other two that were put through by Bush. One was from 2003. And one was from 2005. This was just an addendum that added like respiratory syndromes like pneumonia that they said that could be transmitted from person to person. But what would it take if it was that easy to put through an amendment to an executive order with 6 paragraphs to add something else? Who's to say that there isn't going to be a 6-paragraph amendment to the executive order with another executive order that includes Ebola to this antibiotic-resistant bacteria executive order? That would take 2 minutes to add an addendum, right? I mean, are you there, Zorie?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I had mute on.
Uh-oh.
And then you go back to Executive Order 12919, which, if they declare a national emergency, they combined those 10 executive orders all into one that can be put out there all together at one time instead of individually. And well, I have that one here.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that he mentions in that executive order under antibiotic-resistant bacteria is that how it's a matter of national security.
There you go.
And didn't we also, and we're going to get back to this this newly formed Ebola military SWAT team boots on the ground on the United States soil, because that's what else they talked about, because it's a matter of national security. So all of a sudden now, Ebola, we don't even need ISIS anymore. They already got ISIS as you cowering under your bed. So now Ebola is ISIS. And they even pointed out on CNN, actually, someone brought this up in a clip the other day, that how CNN was saying that Ebola is the ISIS of diseases. It's
God.
They were playing like psychology on dumb people.
And it's working, I guess.
It is working. Yes. This hijacking is happening at lightning speed now.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we have NDAA people. NDAA, now all of a sudden, because you're not going to get vaccinated, you're a terrorist. It's national security. You are affecting the health and safety of all other Americans because of your selfishness, because you're a renegade, because you won't force vaccinate your kids in school. And I'm telling you, when I got that robocall last week from my school saying, sign the papers, we're giving flu vaccines in school, I was like, absolutely not. You tell mom immediately if they're putting you in a line. And, the sad fact of the matter is, if they decided to do something like that, I will guarantee you that they will go against my wishes and not let my kid call me.
Oh, they will. They won't, if there's your kid's in school, you have no clue as to what's going on there. And if they all of a sudden decide it's an emergency and all the kids have to be inoculated, they aren't going to be letting kids call home or anything. They're going to get them in line, give them the shots.
I know. And, that was all spelled out in that civilian internee manual. And if they decide that you're going to end up, let's say there's some natural disaster and we're all displaced and, our homes are destroyed or there's contamination, so we all got to move out and go let the government take care of us in their shipping container housing or whatever the hell they're going to put you into, and you're unvaccinated, you're going to get it. And, oh, yes. So, by the way, as part of this executive order, we had dug into a couple groups that were mentioned in there that I'd never heard about before. And one was the I read the whole thing. NHSH. Hold on, I still have it here. NHSN. That was the name. They kept mentioning them. And it was.
And what are they? Does it?
Yeah, it does. They keep mentioning NHSN. And when we did a search, it ended up being the CDC's National Healthcare Safety Network. And this is the network they kept mentioning, the network that everyone's going to be connected to surveil. And another thing that I noticed, they kept talking about, was it not chain of command in this antibiotic resistance? It was like, where's the phrase they used? Because it kept echoing in my head. I was like, I know what they mean. Stewardship. Conducting antibiotic stewardship. Well, when you're stewardship, it's like the stewardship of the earth, right? We're going to take care of it.
Right, we're going to take care.
Right, we're going to nurture it. We're going to make sure that we hand it carefully from this one to the next. That's stewardship. So taking stewardship, I mean, like I said, in this case, it's antibiotics, but it could be anything. Stewardship and surveillance and tracking and databases and connected to the network. And here's the group, and it's this list of all these agencies that really shouldn't have anything to do with antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Oh, and the World Health Organization. And we got to bring the rest of the world with their agriculture and their animals and not putting, drugs into their animals so we can have a standard. I was like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm. They've been working.
Agenda 21, globalism, New World Order, military, pharma, industrial complex. Everything
That's what all this surveillance has been about, building up to this.
Well, right. So, get this, when we really started to dig into what is the National Healthcare Safety Network for the CDC, listen to what they can do. This is, I think, pretty much where we ended the show yesterday. The CDC's National Healthcare Safety Network is the nation's most widely used healthcare-associated infection tracking system. The NHSN, which is the National Healthcare Safety Network, provides facilities, states, regions, and the nation with data needed to identify problem areas, measure progress of prevention efforts, and ultimately eliminate healthcare-associated infections. In addition, the NHSN allows healthcare facilities to track blood safety errors and important healthcare process measures such as healthcare personnel influenza vaccine status and infection control adherence rates. Did you hear what they're already tracking in that database?
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare personnel influenza vaccine status. In that executive order, they also talked about your private records connected to the electronic health records initiative.
They won't have to ask you if you've been vaccinated.
No, you are going to be in a database.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So, go ahead.
Okay, there's this Emergency Health Powers Act. Have you heard of that? Are variant forms of anti-terror bills that are virtually redefining the words terror, terrorism, and terrorist. Now, I don't know what the Emergency Health Powers Act would have to do with that, but, like, if you don't get vaccinated, you are a terrorist.
Well, maybe in regard, I mean, since 2001, they've been all on about the bioterror stuff, so
yeah,
that could be why, because now you become a typhoid Mary or could.
Mm-hmm.
So we just let how many people across the border? And 70% of them disappeared.
Mm-hmm. And we have 150 or so coming in from the Ebola countries, into the airports.
Every day. Okay, but let's not get sidetracked because we were on a tangent, and I don't want to go there yet. All right, so we've connected now over the last, I don't know, this must be part 7 of my Ebola special. But I'm telling you, and we started digging into the money again. Oh, my God. The woman that I was reading right at the very end of the show, I believe it's the woman who's in charge of the CDC right now, or in the vaccine program. We'll have to go back there. She used to work for Merck.
I know. I've seen that.
That was very upsetting to see that.
They're all interlocked.
Very much so. That this woman, though, who's in charge of, the U.S. response to what's going on here is tied. As Merck, we had just read, Merck's stock went up to $52 a share, and they're jumping in with both feet to try anything in their library database that'll work for Ebola. Yeah, because there's dollar signs falling from the sky. Never, quote, never in our wildest dreams did we ever, ever, ever think that we would have real human subjects to test on.
Right.
as we're launching all these testing campaigns all over Africa, even in countries that aren't affected.
Mm-hmm.
We're next, people. I had read something about a week and a half ago in one of the science journals, and I don't know where I put that story now. I mean, maybe I can dig through. It might be on Before the First Cup. But there was a statement in an article a few days ago, that really made my hair stand up, and it was referring to after some of the safety testing is done on these poor, unfortunate Africans that have this pandemic going on, so we can now just fast track things and get around getting proper consent because everyone's afraid and they're just lining up for it. Remember, it's all psychology. And who knows, though, in Africa they might actually be forcing vaccinations with the military.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, we got boots on the ground everywhere. We don't know that. And it's not like they haven't done that before, huh?
Yeah, in parts of Africa, too, they're suing Bill Gates. So I wonder what that
India. They are.
Yeah.
I see that in Africa.
I thought it was in... Oh, wait, in the
The
Congo.
lawsuit is in India.
Oh, okay. Then I misunderstood that.
Yeah, it's in India, and there's 2 towns. But anyway, I lost my train of thought now.
About all these agencies coming together and already being set up.
No. Africa. For them taking the vaccines to Africa, they had mentioned in this story that one of the reasons why they were going into the nations that had no infections is because they wanted to prove that it provided prophylaxis, right? Which I believe is giving you the shot to act as a deterrent for getting it in the future.
Right.
So they are literally talking about giving us Ebola vaccines against Ebola so we don't get it. Get it?
Like the flu shot.
Like the flu shot. Yes. Except that Ebola now is being fought with the U.S. military, which makes it a matter of national security.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way that this vaccine could actually somehow become mandatory?
Easy.
That scares me.
I mean, look, even since H1N1, they're forcing nurses to do it, healthcare.
But that's the database I was just telling you about. That's where they're tracking them all. Yes. That's the CDC database, that NHSN.
All right.
That's where they're tracking the inoculation rates of the nurses. It's in a big federal database.
Man.
So how much of a stretch would it be, since they're already going to tie it into all the electronic health records and, Obamacare?
Uh-huh.
Look at it.
Bingo.
They got the whole enchilada now.
Mm-hmm.
Those I talked about this yesterday, too, the pesky HIPAA records. We need to get rid of those because, they hinder our gun safety laws.
Right.
All right, so let me get back to the story that I did yesterday. Yes,
Okay.
It's my second one, people. I post videos, but I usually don't write little blurbs. That was just a little blurb, so it's not a big deal, but it makes me feel good. And I do it as a pseudonym, so it's not even me. I promise I won't get anyone into trouble, but I don't want to take any flack. People just freaking complain too much. You know what I mean?
They do. They're a bunch of whiners.
They are, and I just get so sick to death of it. So I'm not going to put something in my name so then I can get trolls that come and attack me over something I put in a story that they're probably attacking me because they were not researched.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that annoys me. So I don't care. I'll just do it as somebody else and just make sure it gets out there. That's all I care about. But now I lost it. Hold on. I want to play the video. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So we're going to get back to the Pentagon Ebola strike team to fight Ebola on U.S. soil. So this was authorized over the weekend. It's going to be a team of 30 military personnel. All are going to be medical, except for who knows who the 5 compliance trainers are. And if you remember, isn't that how they get their dirty little feet in the door? Isn't that how we started with Iraq again, like just a few months ago? Oh, we were going to provide advisors. Remember?
We almost always go in as advisors.
Well, I just saw something a few days ago that we now have. Was I wrong, or did I see that we literally have 13,000 troops on the ground there now?
I believe you're right.
13,000! And we were just going to provide advisors.
Yeah, well, they were saying, the generals are saying, we can't, airstrikes aren't doing it alone. We have to have feet on the ground.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was like, how did this, in like 2 months' time, escalate from we're not putting any boots on the ground to, well, we're going to put advisors to 13,000 freaking troops?
Well, you know we've had boots on the ground all along.
No, we have, but we also did a massive pullout on Iraq.
Because they were forced to, because that was in the agreement.
But we had to go to Afghanistan. We didn't have enough troops to be running 2 simultaneous wars.
And we're still bombing Pakistan, remember?
Well, yeah, but those are drones. We don't have boots on the ground there.
That's true.
But one thing that's interesting is that we signed an agreement to pull out of, Afghanistan. Don't you remember? Karzai left office, and we're supposed to be leaving there. So maybe that's why we needed to redeploy. It was time to get out the Stratego board and move them around. All right. I want to play this video. This was right after the show finished yesterday. This news got posted, and I literally was sitting there with my mouth open. Anyone who was sitting in chat here right after our show, I hopped in there, and I was like, wow, we're totally screwed, guys.
Yeah, really.
I mean, this is not good. When I went upstairs and told my husband that we now have an Ebola strike team that's going to include the military, even he saw it. He's like, they're going to try to force vaccinate people if this gets really bad. I said, honestly, I mean, I can see their point, okay? The states aren't doing a good job of transmission control. Why isn't the CDC there?
Right. Why they're not doing their job, which affects all the local towns.
Right. So what frightens me is all this time we thought the CDC was supposed to be in charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we see this executive order talking about the Secretary of Defense being the head of the task force for this antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And how much more of a stretch is Ebola? Ebola has no treatment, and it's a virus, right? And it kills people, and it spreads fast. Person-to-person contact, that would fit in with that other executive order for adding to the communicable quarantinable diseases.
Exactly.
Those are the 2 little plugins, pieces of the puzzle. One more little addendum to say the word Ebola, and it's all over. That will absolutely apply. So add to that now that we already have the executive order saying that the Secretary of Defense is in charge of something similar to that, and now we got boots on the ground. Though these are support staff, and they will not be called up unless asked for, they do mention in here that if there are any more cases, they're going to get involved. And oh, lo and behold, there wasn't 1, there wasn't 2, there were 3 yesterday on flights in the United States.
3?
3! Right after, at the end of the show, I'd said, wow, the whole Ebola story's gotten kind of quiet. It makes you wonder what's going on. And then all this when I get off air. So, all right, let me connect. And we are going to listen to this Ebola strike team story from CNN. This was breaking news when this broke 2 days ago. I'm going to go fill up my coffee while this is playing. It's going to take me 30 seconds. All right, here we go. Maybe.
CNN has learned the Defense Department is preparing a military quick strike team that will go anywhere in the United States to help with any cases of Ebola that might arise. I want to bring in CNN Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr. She's on the phone now. And Barbara, President Obama had said he wanted aggressive
action. What are these strike teams designed to do?
Well, hi, Deborah. What we're talking about here is the Department of Health and Human Services this week said to the Pentagon, we may need help. And the Pentagon responded and now is in the process of assembling. Some are calling it a quick strike team. Some are calling it a rapid response team. Whatever you want to call it, this is a team for the first time of military medical professionals. They will go to Fort Sam Houston in Texas, get trained up within the next couple of days, and be ready to deploy if civilian health authorities, the CDC, whatever, says we need help in this particular location. They'll name a location. The team will be able to go there. The team, 30 people, is going to be made up of 5 doctors, 20 nurses, and 5 so-called trainers, people in the military who are very highly trained in how to deal with this issue of personal protective equipment, how to be compliant with the procedures on how that personal protective gear is used so that healthcare workers are protected and more cases don't erupt from healthcare workers getting the virus. The team orders are to be ready to deploy anywhere in the United States within 72 hours of getting orders. So for the first time now, we've seen military people travel to West Africa to help there. But for the first time now, we're seeing things being put in place for military personnel to help here in the United States if and when they get the order to go. Deborah?
And Barbara, these 5 doctors, 20 nurses, and these effective compliance trainers, have they been trained to work together? Do they know what the response is supposed to be? And is this an area of specialty? Isn't that one of the criticisms, ultimately, that everyone is learning on the job?
Well, to some extent, absolutely. This has just all really emerged in the last hour or so that the Pentagon was putting this together. My understanding from the sources I've spoken to in the last several minutes is they will go to this military base in Texas very rapidly. They're identifying the people now. They will get trained up. They will very quickly learn to work together as a team. That is what the U.S. military does. And they do have people that know how to do this, how to basically respond rapidly in a crisis. But I think your point is very fair and very well taken. This country really hasn't dealt with this sort of issue before, recently at least, and so everybody's a little bit learning on the job. The military has one critical advantage, which is, people will tell you, is if this erupts into a full-blown crisis, they can assemble large numbers of personnel, equipment, aircraft, medical capability, and move it anywhere in the country very quickly that it might be needed.
Stop. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, God, this is so irritating. She said, I mean, did you hear what she listed off, like, as munitions? I mean, aircraft, equipment, large numbers of people, and move them around anywhere that's needed on U.S. soil quickly. I didn't like that at all. All right, here, we're going to finish this.
It's the one part of the United States government that can just really respond very, very quickly. And so they hope they're not going to get called into action, but they will be ready to go if they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a very big if more cases are diagnosed, the equivalent effectively of military boots on the ground. But Barbara, is there any suggestion as to where these doctors and nurses would operate out of? Would they be given hospital privileges, for example? Would they work in tandem with doctors who are treating individuals? Is this about quarantine? Have they given you any further? I know it's just new and you're breaking this news on our air, but is there any specifics or logistics of how this works, what it looks like?
Well, all I can tell you is, legally in the United States, the United States military, the active duty force, always, if they are called to do something in the United States, legally, they are always in support of civilian authorities, whether it's a city that may be having a flood or a state that's fighting a wildfire or a medical crisis that the federal government and state governments are trying to fight. So they will be in support of civilian medical authorities. They will go, if they are ordered, where they are asked to go. This is, not to be flip about it, there's no military martial law in play here. But
did you hear that?
Yeah, right. There isn't bullshit.
And when my husband heard that, he said exactly what I did. Yeah, but the fact that she even mentioned it, you know what I mean?
Like, get it in there, get it said, get them used to hearing
There's no martial law. What's martial law, Mommy?
And anyway, isn't that what the National Guard's supposed to be for, not the active military?
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. Now, here's a question, though. Remember that we read a story, about a week ago about Obama using an executive order for these Ebola troops, which I thought were for Africa, calling up National Guard and reserves. Now, nothing says anything here as to who these people are that they are currently training as of yesterday, but I might just toss it out there that maybe those reserves and National Guards are for this Ebola task force.
Well,
I would be surprised. I mean, because wouldn't this violate posse comitatus if we were like pulling live troops and putting boots on the ground, like she said, in the United States?
But I thought Bush eliminated posse comitatus. Did it ever get reinstated?
That I don't know, but let's not get off the topic, okay? That was just one little detour. Anyway, all right, let me finish my clip.
Okay.
Why don't you look that up then about posse comitatus? But that isn't what I want to talk about because we got more.
Be quite interesting because, of course, civilian hospitals do have those separate issues of hospital privileges and their accredited personnel. I'm going to tell you, we don't know at this point exactly how all those issues will be worked out. But what we do know is over the last several days, as the president has been meeting with his advisors, all the portions of the federal government really have been told to look for a more aggressive response to the Ebola situation. And our sources are telling us that over the last several days, this is what the Pentagon and HHS, Health and Human Services, have come up with, that the Pentagon would have the ability to offer some additional medical capability and medical capacity if it's needed.
So the Pentagon, I just can't even get over the fact that we are talking about using the military in regards to a pandemic. Did they do that during the 1918 flu? I don't know.
I don't know for sure.
All right, I'm going to drop the link to this. So share that far and wide. I was surprised to hear that, and I was surprised that other people hadn't already heard about that. It happened at the dead of night over the weekend when nobody was paying attention, of course.
That's always when they bring them in.
Mm-hmm. All right, so on top of all of this, they're saying in here, they're going to deploy these people up to 72 hours after we have new cases and it's requested. And right on the tails of that announcement, what do we see? And this is actually 2 videos later. This was yesterday.
Public health officials at 2 airports have been sent scrambling over Ebola scares. A child passenger en route to Chicago's O'Hare from Liberia reportedly started vomiting, was rushed to the hospital, and remains isolated for observation. And an adult passenger also traveling from Liberia had similar symptoms and remains hospitalized as well. And at Newark International Airport, a passenger from West Africa also exhibiting symptoms is now hospitalized in isolation. The feds now routing all passengers arriving from the Ebola hot zone through only 5 U.S. airports: Newark, JFK, O'Hare, Dulles, and Atlanta.
By the way, Zorie, somebody on one of these stations at dinner time the other day asked your question. They were saying that like 90% of all traffic from Liberia comes through these 5 airports, or 86% or whatever. And you had even said, but what about the other 16%? One of those mainstream talking parrots actually asked that same question on air the other day. I thought it was kind of funny.
What was their answer?
They were like, the chances are very slim.
Don't go off script like that.
Yeah. They kicked her under the desk. So here, I'll drop that one in chat too. So that was yesterday. It sounded like there were 3 potential new cases from yesterday. Did that?
Yeah, it's a bad disease, right? But like, okay, how many total cases is that to cause all this? You know?
What was that?
Well, like there's been, 5 cases or 6 cases altogether, here where they put them in, not that they had it, but that they put them in quarantine or
No, there's been way more than that. They got a couple hundred, I think, total. There was,
really?
Down in Texas, yeah. There were 100 and some odd people, all from Duncan. And then don't forget, you got the woman who flew to Ohio and back. So they did quarantines. I thought they did some quarantines in Ohio. There were people on the plane, 130 people one way, and I don't even remember the number on the other. And they made all those people, some of those people go into self-quarantine.
But out of all those people that went into quarantine, have we had any more cases?
Well, no, but this is what we were saying yesterday. Another video came out saying... Now, we're not near the 42-day period yet. We're only just at like 30. And there have been a couple stories now that are showing traditionally in the research that they did. And we played a clip yesterday. The guy was saying, well, maybe in like single person infections, 21 days might be appropriate. But once it starts to go exponential, where one person then gives it to somebody else, and then their travels can give it to other people, it's actually shown that it's more like 40 some odd days for incubation. Just, I don't know, because of the logistics of it. And
2 to 42 days, I think they said.
So here's the thing. These people they just let out were at 21 days. That was a couple days ago. And the infection before that, when Duncan got here, was a few days before that. So we're probably right somewhere around the ballpark of 30 days. I say give it another 2 weeks before you know for sure.
True. But I mean, just the fact, even if it's 100 and something, to put this many executive orders and this many things together, it seemed like build fear, because people weren't being afraid anymore. I think a lot of it has to do with that.
Well, of course it is, because you can't see it, you can't shoot it, you can't argue with it, you can't, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
just like terrorism.
Just like terrorism, but there are different money mongers involved. Remember, we've been outlining here now for the last week this entire money trail with all these greedy pharmaceutical companies that were all financed with DARPA seed money. That was that story, one of the stories we ended the show with yesterday that we got to go back and rip the rest of it apart. But that was all government money that then these companies went public. That one, the Shimerics, had absolutely no product in the pipeline, yet the CEO was making $473,000 or $437,000 a year.
Yeah.
Telling little dying kids that we can't give you our product as a mercy test or whatever, because if you die, it's going to look bad for our initial public offering.
Exactly.
It was horrible. And the reason why the kid was in such bad shape is because the original version of the drug, which was intravenous, not oral, had put him into kidney failure.
Mm-hmm.
His parents are crying, please help, your product is the only thing that could save my son. I mean, that's awful. These drug companies and this whole Obamacare debacle, I've been saying that since the very beginning, that this has nothing to do with healthcare. This is about getting you into that electronics database, the electronic health records database, This was about turning healthcare plans into not healthcare plans, so none of the corruption laws cover them anymore, and they can all slippery palms back and forth, and putting us all as an R&D budget line item that's now free.
And why would they put the IRS in charge of it?
Well, yeah, besides that. But, I mean, it's all about making money.
Yep.
It's all about making money. When you now become a free resource for them to test drugs on, you've just saved all these multi-billion-dollar corporations millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, in R&D development.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they're creaming their shorts right now over Africa.
Right, and they don't have to pay that fast track $1 million to $2 million.
No, and it's fast tracked automatically because, oh my God, it's a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. So, I had all kinds of other stuff, but let me just look here really quick. Let me do a refresh. Because I thought, oh, no wonder, because I'm not on the Ebola page. I wanted to do the Ebola, cashing in on Ebola as a brand name.
Oh, boy.
A brand name. Ebola. Yeah. Or how about a genetically modified organism with a patent on it? And all of these cell genomic structures that we can license to companies like Merck.
Yep.
That's what they've been doing. All right, here we go. So it's all, we can rub dirty money all over our naked pharmaceutical bodies because that's what they're doing. It's like an orgy.
Yeah.
It really makes me want to barf. All right. Here we go.
Maybe. The World Health Organization says it hopes to test 2 new Ebola vaccines in West Africa by January. They will be given to 20,000 frontline healthcare workers to begin with. But while the epidemic could be a lucrative market for drugs companies, others are already cashing in. Gianni Chkian investigates.
What's in a name? Whether we like it or not, Ebola is becoming a brand name. And what happens to a brand name? People capitalize on it. I was surprised to find just how many iPhone cases with Ebola on them are on sale now. $50 for this one. Hug me, I'm Ebola free, says one of the great many t-shirts that you can find with Ebola on them. Some of these t-shirts link Ebola with President Obama for some reason. Oh yes, there's also a bumper sticker on sale. The website says it's among its best sellers. Do you want to wear some more Ebola? How about an Ebola thong? Someone saw something sexy in a deadly virus. Oh, and it's on sale, $4 cheaper. I wonder why. Do you have trouble starting a conversation at a party? This time, maybe just for you. The seller's website says, Ebola bears a certain public fascination, and this design remains one of our most requested items. Speaking of public fascination, one company in California is looking to make a killing this week, selling Halloween costumes of an Ebola health worker.
The costume is very current, it's very trendy. People want that shock and awe Halloween costume, and this is definitely it.
For the more sensitive, there are these special candles. Pray to end Ebola for only $40. Oh, and a little something for the kid. A fluffy Ebola. The seller's website advertises it as the T-Rex of microbes. Also as a great teaching tool for students of all ages. Most of these businesses say they raise awareness by selling Ebola-named products. Others look at it and say they've just turned a deadly disease into business. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chekyan, RT.
And isn't that just the way capitalism works?
Exactly.
But, you know, the thing is, I know, like, this is kind of amusing, like an Ebola thong, but here's the thing. You don't think that that's what all these rich bastards are doing that are parts of these companies and parts of the government and parts of the military and the military-industrial complex? They've just stitched all this together to be the biggest money-making orgy ever on the planet in history.
just like cancer does. It's money. They don't have these are psychopaths.
But this
They
is
don't
bigger
care.
than cancer, Zorie, because guess what? Cancer wasn't militarized.
That's
Cancer was not a weapon of mass destruction that they can then put in the hands of manufactured terrorists. Cancer wasn't lurking everywhere you look around the corner, potentially. Oh, is it airborne? Oh, does your neighbor have it? Oh, does your dog have it? Damn it.
Yep.
Is it at the school? Is it at the lunch, the local deli?
Don't get on a bus.
Yeah, don't fly. This really is probably the most ingenious way to push that 9/11 fear button and reactivate it again, but even beyond. I mean, we've always joked about like the whack-a-mole terrorists that pop up everywhere. By the way, I saw there was a whole brand new group that just popped up in Yemen.
Oh, boy.
And what did I see? I think Al-Qaeda is back with force. Because they were kind of waning for a while. They were
wasn't
taking
getting enough attention.
yeah. But I just see that this is beyond a shadow of a doubt probably one of the biggest orchestrations of bullshit ever. And they are rubbing their grubby hands together and are so freaking proud of themselves.
Yeah.
Now, if people don't pay attention and people aren't going to fall into line with all the stuff that they're lining up. Now, you see, too, that let me just find where that was. They wanted to know whether, I know, because they were talking about visa restrictions. Now, that's something that they're fighting against really hard. Oh, that would really mess us up if we put travel restrictions. Now, remember, just like when Fukushima happened in Japan, and everyone's like, oh my God, with all that radiation, we should be, stopping the food from being shipped in and stuff. And one of the first things that happened is Hillary Clinton came out as Secretary of State and said, oh, but Japan is one of our biggest trading partners.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that.
Right.
It'll be okay. It's all about the money. So they're going to wait until this gets to the nth degree. We cannot stop a travel ban. We want to make sure we get lots of Typhoid Marys here. We want to make sure we soak every penny we possibly can until we can now use the crisis to decide that, I don't know. I mean, didn't they talk about not paying your taxes? They were going to be able to pull your passport?
Yeah, well, now with Obamacare, they can go right into your account and take the money out.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about travel bans.
Oh,
not allowing you to travel. They had said that if you did not pay your taxes,
they can revoke your passport.
They were going to revoke your passport. Well, if the IRS is also in charge of Obamacare, how much of a stretch is it going to be if you are not into that NHSN CDC vaccine database to decide that you no longer have a valid passport? And I just saw something yesterday that they were talking about whether or not to put passengers that were on that other flight, let's say, people who are potentially exposed that are under their 21-day quarantine, quote unquote, if they should put them on a no-fly list.
And they're just debating it?
Yeah. But still, do you see where this is going? I mean, not that that's not a bad idea, because I know I wouldn't want to be sitting next to one of those people on a plane, but also using this as a way to figure out how and when we're going to pull your passport or how and when we're going to put you on a no-fly list to limit your travel is a very scary thought.
Yeah, it is.
They're like bringing this down to laser focus now. But they're all doing it under the guise of contagion, and you are really going to drop your pants and allow them to give all they got to make sure that you're safe. Please, please, please take away my liberties. Please, please, please make sure that you restrict where people go. And I mean, it's almost a necessity, isn't it? It's like so insidiously ingenious.
Or say you fly in your work. Well, You have to have the Ebola vaccine before you can fly.
Absolutely. And they just increased DHS security at the airports back about a month ago. And part of their new plan, and I couldn't even believe when I saw this, that they actually make you pay for it. You got to pay extra to be on that fast track TSA plan.
Oh, yeah. That's been in effect for a while.
Right. But what I'm saying is, Zorie, now if you're all databased and you got your vaccine and they're talking about all this interagency cooperation across the board, that will be your travel pass, right?
Yep. Exactly.
You get to the airport, it's checked off you have the Ebola vaccine, it's checked off you got your microchip, you got your nanotech implant.
You can get on board.
You can get on a plane and you can travel freely. Oh, and you can have a job. Because you know what? We don't want unvaccinated workers coming to the office and getting other people sick. And then the insurance companies are going to suffer.
Oh, jeez.
Think about it.
Think about it, it's crazy how how everything is connected to everything.
It is. It's absolutely connected. They have managed to stitch it together. And, I see it as a big bag with a pull string on the top. And that hole is so tiny right now at the very top. The time, we better figure out how to get a pair of scissors and cut through the mesh of the bag. That's what I'm working on. And make sure there's safety scissors, too. No running.
I don't know. That net is pretty wide.
They had Anderson Cooper, I'll be nice about it, on air the other day. And of course, as they always do, they do hit pieces on quote-unquote conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was listening to this yesterday, and I was like, wow, again, they're trying to make us all look crazy. At least they didn't mention AJ like they usually do. But hold on. Should we play Anderson Cooper?
Yeah, let me hear what he's got to say.
It got me mad. It actually made my blood pressure go up when I heard this. All right. Ebola fears lead to harsh conspiracy theories. If it clicks.
The Ebola outbreak has done a lot to focus attention on problems at local hospitals, the CDC, the entire public health system. Keeping them honest, though, it's also given a bunch of people license to let their conspiracy flags fly, venting a whole lot of dubious theories, to say the least, and to be blunt about it, a whole lot of kind of toxic, crazy stuff as well. In our next hour tonight, you're going to hear from a doctor on the front lines in Liberia doing the real work that people there and people everywhere need done. First, though, the others, most of them far from the action, hitching everyone's fear of the virus to their own pet theories of why the virus is spreading. There's the anti-vaccine activist who says the vaccine makers are behind it.
Some people in industry, government, and the World Health Organization did not want the Ebola outbreak to be confined to several nations in Africa, because that would fail to create a lucrative global market for mandated use of fast-tracked Ebola vaccines.
Now stop. Hold on. I got to stop this echo. That woman, she looked really familiar. I think it's someone we might know. And they didn't have a name for her either, which was odd. Like CNN played a clip but didn't identify who the clip was. And it was a woman speaking. But she's absolutely on the money. That's exactly what they're doing. But that was a toxic conspiracy theory. When have we ever been able to trust these corrupt corporations? Merck, one of which just was convicted on massive corruption charges in China. And then we find out Merck is jumping in both feet forward into this Ebola thing. Their stock is all going up. And as a matter of fact, the woman that's in charge of all this at the CDC used to work for Merck.
Exactly.
I mean, bullshit. And the fact that Anderson Cooper could even keep a straight face and call these people conspiracy theorists with like this disdain is... I think we should spam the shit out of him because that pissed me off.
Right, and it's all out there in the open anyway, so why, where's the conspiracy?
There isn't. All right, let's play the rest of this.
There's also the Liberian newspaper saying Ebola is a U.S. bioweapon designed to depopulate the planet. The headline asking the question, Ebola AIDS manufactured by Western Pharmaceuticals, U.S. DOD, question mark? Now, full disclosure, we don't know much about the Liberian press and that particular paper's record of reporting, if you want to call it that, but we do know they don't have a monopoly on crazy conspiracy theories, thanks to some elected representatives right here in America.
Stop. So Liberia, in their own paper, making headline news, and there are all kinds of U.S. bioterror labs down there in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
He undermined their ability to report, whatever you call it, news, like other crazy conspiracy
theories. Because they don't go by a script like these.
Exactly. That has to be approved by the CIA before you can open your mouth, Mr. Anderson, former I work for the CIA, Cooper. I mean, what the hell? I could not believe this. All right, and then, an elected representative actually spoke some truth. They're going to rip him to shreds, too, and make sure he doesn't get reelected. Hold on.
Texas GOP Congressman Steve Stockman. He's wondering why Ebola made it into the country, and he's wondering whether it's because President Obama wanted it that way.
It just bizarre there's not enough action up front. I'm wondering if that's intentional in order to create a greater crisis, to use it as a blunt force to say, well, in order to solve this crisis, we're going to have to take controls of the economy and individuals and so forth.
Now, was there anything wrong with that statement?
Mm-mm.
He was speaking absolute truth. It's very
possible. But we know
possible.
what happens when you tell the truth.
Well, exactly. He's probably going to have a horrible accident.
Mm-hmm.
Or not be elected. Or who knows? All right, hold on.
Again, that's a member of the U.S. Congress. We asked him to come on the program to expound on that theory. He didn't return our call. Others have a somewhat different twist on the Obama loves Ebola theory. Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, take it away.
The reason why a bunch of people don't think we should be banning flights is because we kind of are responsible for this. And therefore, if Ebola ends up here, well, it's only payback, folks. Slavery, it's only payback. And unfortunately, we have elected people in positions of leadership who think this way. The president is one of them.
It's his father's rage against colonialism, as Dinesh D'Souza wrote about. And maybe this is a way to continue to atone for that.
Now, you can decide for yourself what to make of that and all the rest. What they all have in common is not one of them has anything to do with the brave people actually fighting Ebola, nor the people living with it or dying of it.
And that was that. Disconnect. I don't know. That to me was very, very, very frustrating to hear. I don't care about Laura Ingraham or Rush Limbaugh, two people that I don't listen to. They're kind of crazy ideas. But the congressman, the Liberian paper, and what was the first one? Whoever that woman was, talking about the big pharma actually creating this as a way to make all kinds of money and get us all to get these vaccines. And when you add Obamacare into the mix, and these all happened in a progression too. It was such a perfect progression, like it was almost a script.
It was.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely was.
Yep. I mean, it's anytime anyone speaks the truth or connects any dots, they are automatically labeled conspiracy theorists. But you know what? A lot of people are listening to whoever they call conspiracy theorists because they're seeing that the news is lying to them left and right. Some people are starting to connect the dots and scratching their heads, going, "What?"
Yeah, and the thing is that probably at some point in the future, much of that stuff that was a quote-unquote conspiracy theory comes out as, whoops, no, it wasn't.
They were right.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that more and more all the time. But I don't know if it's in time to do anything to stop this script that they're all following. How do you interrupt it or,
Exactly. I'm just trying to see if there was anything new that happened on the Ebola front since I crashed out, and it doesn't look like there could be in a few minutes. I need to look. Here, we are going to listen to the vaccine race. That was the last one I wanted to hear. And then, because this is about Africa, and then we're going to use that as our springboard back into the stuff we were talking about yesterday with who's involved with what drug company and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In Freetown, Sierra Leone, volunteers and health workers visit crowded housing areas in an effort to raise awareness about the Ebola epidemic. These door-to-door talks are the latest step by officials to stem the spread of the disease. Ebola has now claimed more than 4,500 lives, nearly all in West Africa. The rising death toll has prompted the World Health Organization to hold a third emergency meeting in Geneva. Up for discussion, travel rules, screening measures, and the launch of large-scale vaccine trials.
These trials will incorporate the largest number of volunteers and will be very important in terms of determining both the safety and the immunogenicity. And these data are absolutely crucial to allow decision-making on what dose level should go in the efficacy testing in Africa.
As the spectre of Ebola looms large, the world's leading drug makers are racing to develop their own vaccines. Johnson & Johnson is accelerating work on its experimental Ebola treatment and aims to produce 250,000 doses by next May. Britain's GlaxoSmithKline says it expects to have a first batch of doses ready by late this year. But some analysts are cautious about how beneficial this will be for GSK's bottom line. Jessica Ground is UK fund manager at Schroders.
I think, well, these things like Ebola vaccines are great for headlines. We saw it with sort of Tamiflu a couple of years ago. It can be very hard for companies to capitalize in profit terms. I think Glaxo's got a very clear plan to be one of the leading players in vaccines, and I think it's important then that with this virus they really demonstrate the leadership that they have in this product area.
Yeah, that was so nice. Let's do a report as we're showing all these poor, sick African people. Let's switch to the stockbroker.
Yeah.
Showing GlaxoSmithKline's headquarters and talk about what their bottom line's going to look like. I mean, if that is not so damn obvious, I don't know what is. All right, here's the end.
The rivalry, the two pharmaceutical giants appear to be weighing up the option of collaborating to remove any potential bottlenecks. Johnson & Johnson's head of research said the two companies would support each other's work and could combine their vaccines if that made sense.
Now, one of the things that I haven't... Oh, hold on. Don't start another one. One of the things I have not seen is Johnson & Johnson, one of the companies involved. So that was the first I had heard of them. GlaxoSmithKline had actually shown up in some of these other pipeline reports and stuff that I've been digging through for the last 6 months or so.
And they might join forces to avoid any bottlenecks.
Yeah, did you see that? And actually, that brings up a good point. So let's get down to the speaking about joining forces. There was a nefarious connection formed. Hold on, scroll. I might even have it open, but I have so many tabs open now. It's not even funny.
You'll turn to molasses here anytime then.
Yeah, actually, you just jinxed me. Here we go. Amgen. LA Times from the 21st, which was 2 days ago, announced we actually had... hold on 1 second here. I'm trying... Oh, man. If I had, more computer screen width here, I could probably all do these at the same time. But a lot of times I have this all queued up if I am physically, mentally spry. Hold on. We're going to see if we can find the clippy that came right before this. Because, I don't know, one thing that I've always been able to do is when I see one little piece, I was always good at that game when I was a kid, where you could have a whole screen or a whole page or a whole rectangle full of cards that are all flipped over with just the back showing. And then you flip one over, and then you flip another one over, and you try to find the matches.
Concentration. That was the name of it.
I don't know if that was the name. I mean, you used to play that just with cards even. We used to play
Right,
it.
and they even had a TV show with it.
Yeah, there was a game show way back when. I don't remember what it was called. But yeah, I was always really good at that game, like remembering where I saw the match to it.
Right.
And that's what this almost feels like at times. Like when I'm hitting these, I probably have 100+ feeds that I follow 24/7. Anytime I'm awake, I'm looking at something, or I'm got another feed or another funnel or another message or another tweet or another
something connects there.
Yeah, bing, and I'm like, oh, there's the match.
Yep.
It's exactly what it is. And now what I do like a lot is with some of these playlists we've been building now, with these tabs, this is like super match game now. Right? Because now you're putting like huge groups of data that we're all in, when it's 5,000 different topics and they're all intermingled and it's just an endless stream of news, you miss something.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's just one topic and it's all on one page, wow, does it make it so much easier to
Anything that involves like Ebola goes to one page, and then finances goes to another, and DARPA another. Then you can start connecting dots.
Yeah, well, I have some of those playlists built actually, but they're still all hidden because we're working on trying to dig up 3 or 4 additional channels worth of content to add. So put on a seatbelt, people, because that's what I'm really pushing for a goal here. I want to see such a massive barrage of information that's all properly sorted and databased. I want to take their technologies that they're using to enslave us, the technologies that we help them implement
to wake up people,
to stuff it right back down their throats.
Yep.
You know what? I can do just as good as you can, and probably even better, because we're doing stuff that I've never seen done before. At least on the back end, from a technology end, with some of the code and some of the ways we're tying stuff together and making things work on the back end here, and processing and then pushing and pulling and multi-pushing. And I'm telling you, when this next phase of this crap that we're doing is ready to rock and roll, I'm just going to open every faucet.
And then go on like Facebook and put links all going.
Oh, hell yeah. Trust me, man. I'm going to have like 100 accounts. And they're all going to be different names and connected to different groups, and I'm just going to turn on the floodgates.
Not here tomorrow, you know why.
Yeah, the door broke. It opened accidentally by force.
And so many that they can't stop them all.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. I want to get shit out there. So, because here's the thing. Anything that's on the internet, guys, all it's going to take is one poof and it's gone. Whether it's someone trips over a plug accidentally or intentionally. If the sun burps, which, by the way, I saw there was an X 1.6 yesterday. I don't know if there was a follow-up to that. If a thermonuclear device explodes a few miles above the atmosphere, poof. You know what I mean? I mean, there can be many things that make our online content the 21st century equivalent of the Library of Alexandria burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so the hope is, if all this info gets out there, people archive it, people take it, people repost it. So if
there's a lot of people like me that downloads everything.
Exactly, Zorie. I'm telling you, there are over now, I believe, 17,000 videos, and there's probably only a few thousand online. The rest were all taken offline. Now, they're all sitting on hard drives, so that's what we're working on getting done. But all that info.
Mind the important ones and relevant ones. I send them out. I download them, and then I pass them through Skype to people.
Oh, that's a good idea, too. Or burn them to something. Burn them to a DVD, that's a good idea.
In fact, I have all of mine on. I had to back up everything on that one computer that's in the shop now.
Oh.
So I have everything I've ever downloaded on 4 terabytes of hard drives.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Here is another question, too, and I want to just take a look at some of what happened with the this shooting in Ottawa yesterday. You know, that King, Peter King, I think he's a senator or something, right? Out of New York City, Long Island, somewhere there. I saw him at dinner time yesterday connecting dots with this. There was the I don't know if it was the same person. Honestly, I didn't follow the Ottawa thing too closely, but here's two things I saw while I was watching the manufactured news while I was eating. By the way, I cooked again. And this time, goodness. I know, it's been like the whole week. I've been doing special mommy, stay healthy stuff with lots of turmeric and pepper and all fresh vegetables and just loads of nutrition. And so I did a beef vegetable soup yesterday with my preservative MSG-free beef broth that's not in a can. And I used every last vegetable that was in the refrigerator. I went in.
And those make the best soups. They do.
Oh my God! It was everything, and there were three, not one, not two, but three cruciferous vegetables in there, which are so good for you: cabbage, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts.
Good for you. Yeah, yesterday I made a batch of pomegranate juice, and we drank that down.
Yeah, I have some of that also.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gives me heartburn, though. It's pretty acidic.
Me too, you know.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And you got to be careful if you're on certain medications, by the way.
I'm on no medications. But you know what's really good, too? If anybody makes their own applesauce, take your pulp from your pomegranate seeds and put it in your applesauce. It makes it awesome, and it's so good for you.
Oh, so we don't get derailed again. So anyway, this Peter King, I hear him talking about the shooting in Ottawa, and one of the things that we'd been postulating about earlier in the day is whether or not somehow, somewhere, like the very first stories that came out about the Canadian shooting is whether or not they were A, going to be Muslim, and B, somehow connected to ISIS. It's like, uh-oh. And so I watched them for a whole half hour babbling on CNN about how this guy converted to Muslim, and they kept showing his name, and we don't know yet if he's connected to ISIS, but they're making sure they're talking about it. And Peter King is pointing out how New York State is right along the border with Canada, and it's an international border. What?
Yeah, it's all our fault now.
Oh, I didn't say it was all our fault,
No,
but what I was seeing him translate, what I was translating, what he was saying to, is that this is the border, the terrorists are there, they could come here, and damn good thing that we are putting together this effort at security to keep us all safe. And as I'm reading these executive orders yesterday, and I'm playing these clips and reading these stories, I'm watching how much the UN, the same one that we've been collaborating with to then go drop humanitarian peace bombs on all the Middle Eastern countries, the UN is involved with the Ebola response.
Right.
And the UN is going to be tied into this antibiotic-resistant bacteria SWAT team that we're forming with the Department of Defense. We're going to collaborate together and pool our resources. Don't you see this Ebola thing as another multifaceted and maybe even better and scarier way to pull together this one world rule? Exactly. Quarantine, travel restrictions, tracking, people who've flown. They've been talking about all this stuff as part of Ebola. Now, I most certainly don't want flights flying in from Liberia. I think we should have shut the borders a long time ago. I most certainly do think that we should be tracking all these people that are flying with people that come from infected countries. But by me saying that, and by me using, I don't know if it would be fear, but I guess it would be. I don't want to get Ebola. That is giving up civil liberties, isn't it?
Exactly.
Don't those people have the right to free travel without somebody surveilling them?
Not anymore.
But, wait. If the freedoms of the few will negatively affect the freedoms of the many, then shouldn't the freedoms of the few be restricted.
Right, and that's a democracy, and we are not supposed to be a democracy. We're
Well, and this is a new mindset that they're trying to now put into our heads.
Yep.
And even, like, I heard Nick and DB talking yesterday about the whole drought in California, and that there's a new app where you can, and let's not get off the track, but I just want to bring this just for 1 second into focus. There's a new app where you can see something, say something, and report your neighbors for using water outside of the restriction or the usage hours.
Yeah, that's been in effect for a couple months now,
Yeah. But this mindset of reporting your neighbors, of being surveilled, of being restricted, being told what you could do and what you could not do, things that used to be a right.
Well, look at Agenda 21. They're putting meters on people's wells on their own property.
Well, this is all Agenda 21. Remember, the FDA wants to be able to take control of vitamins.
Exactly.
And control.
There isn't one aspect of our lives that they are not gaining control of.
All right. So I'm just trying to see if there was anything else that I missed yesterday, except for, the terrorists in Ottawa. The resident in RT actually came out and talks about, this is to stitch it all together. Stitch, stitch, stitch. I don't like her music, though, so we're going to skip it. I always skip her music. All right, here we go.
Ebola is freaking everyone out right now. So is ISIS. No one seems to be able to process just how horrible they both are. So everyone is trying to link them together somehow. CNN keeps running these asinine headlines like, is Ebola the ISIS of viruses? Or is ISIS the Ebola of people? Totally stupid stuff. But that's the way humanity is trying to process these two incomprehensibly terrible concurrent things. And now the Pentagon is getting into the linking game. But what they had to say about it is far less stupid and much more terrifying than anything CNN can write. Because the Pentagon just said that we should consider how Ebola could be used as a weapon of mass destruction, a WMD, by ISIS. That's what Andrew Weber just said. And he should know. He's the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense Programs in the U.S. He's the guy that oversaw the disposal of serious chemical weapons. And now he's the guy that is set to become the U.S.'s official deputy at the State Department's new Ebola Coordination Unit.
What?
I didn't catch that before.
What? The State Department's Ebola Coordination Unit? Oh, all right, let's play the rest of this. I'm going to plug that in and see if we can find out about that.
One of the guys who knows most about WMDs is now going to head up the Ebola unit and is issuing statements about how ISIS might use Ebola as a weapon. This despite the FBI saying that's impossible at press conferences. Weber said there is a risk that ISIS could get access to blood and tissue samples, infect a few people, or worse, infect themselves and then get on planes and start traveling. And there's evidence that ISIS is digging up Iraq's old chemical weapons and using them against people already. So things just got real. This is where laughing at CNN's headlines stops. Now, since Ebola isn't airborne, it's definitely harder to use as a weapon of mass destruction. But as more people continue to get diagnosed with Ebola here in the U.S., where we're supposed to have such great medicine and know-how, it's hard to keep buying into the line that there's nothing to worry about. I'm not saying we all need to panic, but we should all take a pause for a few seconds to realize that Ebola is a real threat. Especially because the thing that no one else is talking about is just how horrific it is to die from Ebola. It's just awful. These poor people are bleeding from their eyes and every orifice possible, getting covered with bloody rashes, experiencing awful pain that no one should feel. That's the reality behind Ebola. And the reality behind ISIS is just as awful. So while it's human and natural to giggle at things we can't comprehend, ISIS getting Ebola into their bloody hands is no laughing matter. Tonight, let's talk about that by following me on Twitter at The Resident.
And see, here's the scary thing. I don't know if she was like right on the money on that, because she's like, oh, well, what she didn't talk about is how these could all potentially be orchestrations too to be used against us. I mean, she avoided that whole thing. But what she did say is absolutely true. I mean, ISIS, though they are manufactured, does not mean that they're not this horrible organization that are doing all kinds of horrific atrocities.
Right.
And Ebola, though, some people are actually saying that this is all fake and blah, blah. You know what? The jury's still out on that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if these people were really infected or if this is just some sort of, play stage that they're setting here to make us react as if it were real.
Well, really, even if you do think it's fake, you still need to take precautions.
Absolutely. And Ebola itself is real, and it is pretty horrific. And she's like, well, what no one is talking about. Well, you bleed out of every orifice. And didn't we say way back when that if they want compliance, having your friends and family members bleeding out of every orifice around you is going to make you get on your knees and beg for a vaccine, is it not?
Right, but I haven't, in the cases that have been here and that guy dying and stuff, I never heard anything said about bleeding.
I actually did in one of the stories recently. It made me think of you.
Oh.
they talked about like the scene after, because the Pigmine actually posted a few videos about what they're doing with the Ebola contaminated waste.
Right.
And I guess in the hospital where Duncan was, it was piled up.
In a room, yeah.
Yeah, and they gave some pretty graphic descriptions of things.
Okay, I missed that one then.
Before we run out of time, though, and we are getting pretty close, I want to get on to this Bill Gates thing. What I really had tried to find was the video about Bill Gates donating the $50 million to the cure, the race to the cure for Ebola. But a story came out in the LA Times 2 days ago titled Amgen to join Gates Foundation in effort to produce Ebola drug.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise. He's like, hey, stock market wasn't doing too well a couple days ago. Better diversify my investments. Amgen Inc. said it will work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other groups, which remain unnamed, but in a lot of these cases, they happen to be DARPA.
Exactly.
To come up with an alternative production method for ZMAP. Now, ZMAP is the GMO tobacco therapy using RNAi.
Right.
But anyway, in production method for ZMAP, the promising experimental drug to treat Ebola, whose supply ran out in August. Now, what's interesting is that Bill Gates is putting his mouth and his money toward an alternative to what the DOD has been working on. Isn't that interesting? Billy Gates, who's shaken hands with more world leaders than any president I remember in the recent past.
Yeah, making his contacts.
He absolutely did. The Gates Foundation is exploring other options amid the worst Ebola outbreak on record, and last week gave MAP a $150,000 grant to see whether large-scale productions is possible with more traditional methods. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped a sentence because the reason why that's important, the sentence I skipped, is because he's actually funding both sides of the game. So the first one is Amgen to come up with an alternative method for ZMAP, but then it continues. ZMAP from MAP Biopharmaceuticals in San Diego is currently made using tobacco plants, which can be induced to grow 3 antibodies in the drug. The Gates Foundation is exploring other options, and last week gave MAP $150,000 grant to see whether large-scale production is possible with more traditional methods. So they are funding both of those guys.
He's covering all sides, yeah.
Right. Toward the effort, Thousand Oaks-based Amgen will detail 12 to 14 staff members. Get this. Is this even worse than GMO tobacco?
God.
Amgen will detail 12 to 14 staff members to see whether the drug can be made, not in GMO tobacco, not in the traditional chicken eggs, but in Chinese hamster ovary cells.
What?
I shit you not. Chinese hamster ovary cells. Now remember, you heard it here first, people.
That's insanity.
That's the first I've heard of that craziness. And I mean, it's not even bad enough that it's hamster ovary cells, but it's Chinese hamster ovary cells.
Right.
It's just unbelievable. While the technique offers a slower route than plant production, the infrastructure for manufacturing drugs in these cells is well established, which means production can be scaled up rapidly. So, I mean, have we been using hamster ovary cells for a long time? Because that's what that
China, I guess
like.
so.
I guess. Among other drugs, these cells are used to produce Amgen's rheumatoid arthritis treatment, Enbrel.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, I've seen commercials for that. And anemia therapy, Epogen. So they're using them already. Chinese hamster ovary cells.
What, we don't have enough hamsters over here?
I guess. Hamsters reproduce fast, too. I started with 2 and ended up with 10, like, in a couple weeks. That was years ago. The gravity of the impact of the Ebola outbreak and Amgen's expertise in developing monoclonal antibodies provide a unique opportunity to assist in the efforts to manage this growing healthcare concern. Yeah, like that wasn't somebody who was the communications director doing a PR hit piece there.
No kidding.
The Amgen workers, so these are the 12 to 14 dedicated to the Chinese hamster ovary cells, will help create antibody production lines for ZMapp. So apparently, they're going to try to get 2 versions of ZMapp. One is with the GMO tobacco, and the other was with the Chinese hamster cells. ZMapp was used to treat 2 infected American health workers who recovered, a Spanish priest who died, and healthcare workers in Africa. Now, I want to stop for a second, because in a couple of the stories, we actually read that they were already doing some mass testing in Africa over the last few days. And then in that one clip we just heard, she said that they were mass vaccinating the healthcare workers in West Africa, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
And I wondered how 2 or 3 doses of ZMapp and all of a sudden out of the blue, we're out of it.
Right, but yet we're giving vaccines to all these healthcare workers over there.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If that ZMapp, that RNA, untested ever, we never thought we would ever have the opportunity to really test this on humans.
There you go.
If they got exactly their Christmas present they've been waiting for.
And tell me this isn't all by design. There's no way.
It has
it
to
couldn't
be. I mean, I've spent many years trying to discover the answers for why. Why are we here? What is reality all about? Is there an afterlife? I mean, they're all the basic questions of what intelligent beings think about when they go through the thing called life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've thought a lot about is whether or not this could all be chance or if there was intelligent design involved. And I've come to the conclusion that somewhere there, just looking at all the math and the science and the art and the beauty and how it all ties together and all the rules are just so perfectly aligned from micro to macro that it's got to have some sort of intelligent design. The pieces all fit too well.
Right. And
couldn't have been random.
Right. It couldn't have been. It has to have been orchestrated because for
Well, don't get off the subject. No.
Oh,
don't
yeah.
get off the subject because I'm trying to draw connecting dots.
Okay.
So when I take that whole line of many years of 40 probably plus years of thinking about that stuff, my deep thinking, and that's the one thing I want to know. I want to know the answers before I kick the bucket. That's it. That's what I want to know. Is what it's all
coming
about.
Together.
But let's take that and equate it now to how beautifully this whole decline of Western civilization is playing out. And I'm just going, shit, how is this possible that this is just so perfect by chance that all of this is happening step by step that you could see it like a film strip? Because it's not accidental.
Right. They took time and built it up step by step.
Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theorists connect the dots. Conspiracy theorists start to see patterns in things. When you start seeing patterns in things, though in mass chaos they sometimes do see patterns. There have been all kinds of experiments on that. It's order out of chaos that actually exists.
Well, theory goes away into a possibility as soon as you have one fact. So.
Well, then you start drawing timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a connect the dot like we used to do as a kid. All right, last thing I want to look at, and there's still more, so I guess tomorrow we can do part 8.
Right.
This is the press release out of the U.S. Department of State. We heard them talk about an Ebola coordinator for the Department of State that I totally missed.
I did too.
September 24th, 2014. Press release. Ambassador Nancy Powell appointed as Ebola coordinator for the Department of State. Secretary Kerry named Ambassador Nancy Powell to lead the Ebola coordination unit at the Department of State. In this role, Ambassador Powell will lead the State Department's outreach to international partners, including foreign governments, to ensure a speedy and truly global response to this crisis. President Obama has declared the Ebola outbreak we talked about this right at the beginning of the show, a national security priority. Speaking on September 16th, which, by the way, was 2 days before the executive order came out about antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Speaking on September 16th at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention at Atlanta. I wonder if that was the day that the guy with the gun got into the elevator with him.
Yeah.
The president outlined the U.S. government's strategy to address the threat from the worsening Ebola epidemic in West Africa. The 4 goals of that strategy are: 1, controlling the epidemic at its source in West Africa. 2, mitigating second-order impacts, including blunting the economic, social, and political tolls in the region. 3, engaging and coordinating with a broader global audience. And number 4, fortifying global health security infrastructure. And this is what that executive order was about in the region and beyond. Even as we lead, the president emphasized at the CDC the need for more nations to contribute experienced personnel, supplies, and funding. Yes, remember, the global, Kerry actually gave a whole speech about that a few weeks ago, about how the international community needs to donate. And here is a pie chart to show you how much you're not donating, how much international funds you have not contributed so we can steal all of your fixtures off the walls as well. That's what this is about. Sucking every last penny out of all of these industrialized countries. So we're all under some sort of austerity measures under the guise of fighting these wars on terror. Whether it be terror by manufactured terror groups or terror by viruses or terror by bioterror or being terrorized by your own people. Protests everywhere. I mean, I don't know if you've been watching, but I have a protest playlist. There's been all kinds of stuff touching up everywhere. Ambassador Powell working with leaders from across our government. This is the newly appointed Ebola coordinator for the Department of State, is leading our efforts to build the coalition required to bring this epidemic under control. Ambassador Powell most recently served as U.S. Ambassador to India. Prior to that, India, by the way, where they just got that whole IBM cashless society rolled out to millions. I don't remember. I'll have to look at the number. It was an extraordinary number of people. Millions. It might have even have had a B in it for billions. Prior to that, she was the Director General of the Foreign Service and Director of Human Resources. Ambassador Powell previously served as the State Department's Senior Coordinator for Avian Influenza. Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
A role for which she was honored with the Homeland Security Service to America Medal in 2006. So there we go, people. Our new Ebola coordinator for the Department of State that nobody knew anything about. All right, everyone, make sure you stay tuned. Graphic warning, beep, beep, beep for the next show. Mr. Kevin Blanche is up next. Turn it down if there's kids around. It's Thursday night, so Mr. Chuck Otelli is live, 6 p.m. Eastern. And Drew and Chuck are on tonight at 10. We got some good old Hal Anthony this week's show. If you missed it on Sunday, will be running after Chuck. And then we have Drew's Off-Grid Journey running following that. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Zorie. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Bye-bye, everybody. Try and smile it off.
All right, we'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. Everybody, take care.